ticking clock.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Hanging Out with Chops. Like always, a big shout out and a hello to all you returning listeners and to all you new listeners. Thank you for stopping by. Saw the stats last week, picked up some new listeners out of Sydney, Russia, Tel Aviv, Mexico. Thank you for tuning in, guys. I'm really glad you're here. Well, it looks like a lot of you kind of dug some of these history podcasts that we did last. I did get some feedback on the microphone episode. That was about how microphone companies kind of were in bed with a lot of governments and how that helped their company flourish. We talked about Shure and World War II and how the Cold War led to spying and bugs that manufacturers were making, and those later on led to stuff like lavaliers and all kinds of kooky stuff. And it looks like you all kind of dug some of those episodes. So here's another history one. Have you ever stumbled on anything online that makes you go, wait a minute, I've been living a lie this whole time? Well, that's what happened to me the first time I fell into the whole rabbit hole of 440 versus 432 tuning. Now, for those of you that are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, don't worry. We're going to break this down from top to bottom. We're talking about what the whole world agrees is in tune. I'm using air quotes, in tune. And how that might not be as set in stone as you think. So today, we're going to dive into one of the strangest, most fascinating debates in all of music. Should A be 440? I'm talking about the A above middle C, which I think is A4. I don't have my piano in front of me to count, but I think it's A4. Should that A be 440 or 432? In other words, should it vibrate 440 times or 432 times? So when you sing that A, does your vocal cords vibrate 440 times a second? When you play that A on your bass or piano, should it vibrate 432 times? And more importantly, does it even matter? Stick around, because we're going from old French orchestras to Nazi conspiracies to the healing power of sound. This episode's got it all, guys. So grab a cup of coffee, grab your favorite chair, grab your headphones. Let's get into it. You're hanging out with Chops. Let's do this.
We're hanging out with Chops. Time just never stops. Answers fade like drops on a broken ticking clock.
So let's start with a little history. The idea of standard tuning is actually pretty new. Back in the day, we're talking 1600, 1700s, there was no such thing as fixed pitch. It was different everywhere you'd go. Every town, every church, every orchestra had its own version of what A was. You could walk from city to city, bust out your violin, play an A, and all of a sudden everybody's giving you dirty looks. Because in their city, your A is their G sharp. What's up with that, bro? Why you're bringing that G sharp around here calling it an A? Why? Well, instruments were built by hand. Tuners were, let's say, creative, using air quotes again. Creative, and the temperature of the room could shift things around, by a few hertz. By the mid-1800s, things got a little more organized. France, France being France, decided to make it official. 1859, they declared that A would officially be 435 hertz, and that would be the national standard. They even passed a law. That's right. You can get in trouble for playing out of tune. Imagine that. You're breaking the law. Tune that thing up. Fast forward to 1939. A bunch of scientists, musicians, and radio engineers from around the world met in London to finally settle it. After a lot of back and forth, they decided that A was officially 440. Why 440? Basically, because it was easy to reproduce with the tech they had at that time. Test tone generators, early broadcast signals. It was clear, round, and reliable. So it stuck. And in 1955, the International Standards Organization made it official worldwide. Every piano tuner, every guitar tuner, every orchestra eventually fell in line. Well, almost every orchestra. Because here's the funny part. Even today, most symphonies tune a little sharp. 441, 442, sometimes even 445. Why? They say it makes the music brighter. So even our so-called standards, they're not that standard after all. Now here's where things get a little wild. Somewhere along the way, musicians and listeners started questioning 440. They said, wait a minute, why are we using that number? Who decided that's natural? And from the shadows of the internet, the 432 hertz movement was born. They call 432 the natural tuning, the frequency of harmony with the earth, the universe, the human body. Some people say it's connected to Schumann's resonance, which is the Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat at around 7.83 hertz. Some point to Fibonacci sequence and claim 432 fits the math of nature better than 440. And others go all the way in and say 440 was chosen by evil powers to make humanity anxious and disconnected. Oh, that Fibonacci sequence. Man, I could do a whole episode or two on just the Fibonacci sequence. Remember years ago when I first discovered the Fibonacci sequence or sacred geometry. My God, I couldn't shut up talking about it. I bet you it was probably something I would bring up during studio conversations all the time because the math behind it was literally blowing me away. For all of you that may not know or may not have gotten into Fibonacci sequences or sacred geometry, look it up. It's really fascinating how it all connects, how the number sequence in nature to the universe to the human body, and it's really mind-blowing. If you really like stoner talk, get into Fibonacci sequence. I guarantee you'll enjoy it. If you've ever been on YouTube, you've probably seen those videos titled "What They Don't Want You to Know About 432, the Hidden Healing Frequencies." I know, before you roll your eyes, let's be fair, a lot of people who've experimented with 432 tuning genuinely feels different. They describe it as softer, warmer, and more relaxed, where 440 sounds a little more tense, a little more clinical. And honestly, I get it. I've done sessions where a slightly lowered pitch just feels better in the room. Singers relax, guitars resonate differently, the mix breathes a little more, whether it's because it's physics or psychology or something different. So, what actually happens? Well, let's talk numbers for a sec. Just crunch some numbers. The difference between 440 and 432 is 8 cycles per second, which is funny. Because 8 cycles per second is kind of the frequency of the earth. That's less than 2%, but our ears are incredibly sensitive. Even a tiny change in pitch can affect the way we perceive harmony. And y'all can tell. You can tell when someone who's singing harmony is a little flat, or you can definitely tell when someone is singing perfectly in tune, because I don't know if you've ever noticed, but if you ever hear two instruments or two people that are singing perfectly in tune together, and all of a sudden a third note appears out of nowhere. Oh my God, if you've never experienced that, man, you're missing out. Watch some videos. It's happened to me before. As a matter of fact, it happened the best I've ever heard was I heard two flute players who were playing so perfectly in tune. I'm talking about they were rolling out, rolling in. They knew, I mean, of course, these were two doctors. They were just, top notch in their field as far as flute players. When they played that line, I could hear three notes, and they could hear three notes, and it was just the overtones were lining up so well that literally a harmonic was popping out. There was a third note that was present that nobody was playing. Crazy stuff. So let's think of it as let's think of the difference as, well, even a tiny change in pitch can affect the way we perceive the harmony. Think of it like color, temperature, and lighting. Changes the light a little bit warmer or cooler, and the whole vibe of the room changes. It kind of shifts. When you lower your tuning to 432, you're slightly stretching all the wavelengths. Each note's harmonic relationship lines up differently. That makes certain chords feel more open and more mellow. You want to go even deeper, guys? If you want to really go deeper, instead of just changing the tuning, change the temperament. What I mean by that, temperament's a whole other ball of wax. Now we're talking about the individual spacing of notes. So in other words, we would bring the space between A and A sharp a little closer or a little further away. And there's all kinds of temperaments you can do. As a matter of fact, I went to one symphony rehearsal. Can't remember the conductor's name. The guy was like a genius, because I remember he had the whole score memorized, and he reworked this one piece to a particular temperament. I can't remember which one it was. It was anyway, and he broke down section by section, and he went note by note. It actually took a while, and he went section by section. So he went French horns, for example, play your F, and the French horns will play the F, and then he would be like, okay, now a little sharper, a little sharper, a little sharper, and then he'd be like, okay, there. If you ever play the F in this song, you play it this sharp. And then, he went like that through all the instruments. It took some time. And he was adjusting, notes and intervals and asking certain sections to play certain cents flat and certain cents sharp on different areas. But once the orchestra started replaying the piece the way he had asked in this new temperament, oh my God, all these partials, all these new harmonics started popping up. And you couldn't even imagine. I mean, it just sounded like a different piece of music. All of a sudden, there was like underlying notes that were meant to be heard, but you just couldn't hear because the overtones weren't lining up. And now that they were, there was these additional harmonies present that nobody was playing. They were just present. It gets deep. Wish I could find a recording of that so I can let y'all hear it. Anyway, back to 440, 432. So, scientifically speaking, there's no proof that one frequency heals your DNA or opens your chakra. But there is truth to the idea that different tunings create different emotional responses. Our brains link sound waves to our nervous system. That's why a low rumble can make you anxious, and a soft string pad will calm you down. So when people say 432 is healing, what they're probably describing is just how our nervous system responds to slightly slower wave motions. I think it gives your brain a little more time, allowing you to relax. I don't think it's technically magic. I think it's more like psychoacoustics. Now, we can't talk 432 without diving into the conspiracy theories, right? Because what's a good music debate without a little paranoia? So here's one that's been floating around a lot. Apparently, in the 1930s, Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, supposedly pushed for 440 because it would make people more aggressive and easier to control. Yeah, it's a real theory. They believe that 440 is so out of harmony with your body and the earth that forcing everyone to play at 440 and to listen to music at 440 would cause chaos in the mind, chaos in the spirit, chaos in the world. It's a real theory. But unfortunately, there's zero evidence that it actually happened. No historical documents, no speeches, nothing. It's just a myth that stuck around because it sounds juicy. Now let's face it, blaming Nazis is kind of the whole internet game. It's the internet's favorite pastime. Here's the truth. 440 was chosen because it was practical, not sinister. At least that's how the story goes. Broadcast companies needed a consistent standard of transmission and manufacturing. I don't think it necessarily was about mind control. It was about making sure the clarinet player and the oboe were in the same ballpark. Yet, the myth still lives on. And hey, it makes for good YouTube videos. Honestly, I think it's more about laziness, quite honestly. It was just easier to reproduce with the tech that they had back then when they decided that 440 was the industry standard. They just went with it. They're like, it's easier. They just go with it. Even though 440 won the official vote, a few artists have toyed with 432. Most famous is Verdi, Giuseppe Verdi. He actually pushed for it in the 1880s, believing it produced a more natural resonance with a human voice. Some claim, John Lennon, Bob Marley, Hendrix used it too. Although it's hard to prove. Tape machines back then ran at all kinds of speeds. And, because tape machines are tape and, tape stretches and bands that would run the tape machines were not 100%. They tend to so let's say they kind of tried to run at 432. They might have been all over the place. It might have been 430, 431, 432, 433, 444. I think it was probably pretty hard to... I don't think they had atomic clocking back then. There's even a rumor that Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon is closer to 432 than 440. Not really on purpose. I think it's just because playback speeds drift. So yeah, it's a romantic side to all this. Musicians love the idea that 432 is the real sound of the universe. It's poetic, it's mystical, and hey, that's part of what keeps music magical. Now let's bring it home to the real world. What we talk about and what we work around every day, studio. Here's my take after years of mixing, recording, and producing in just about every situation imaginable. Tuning is one ingredient, important one, sure, but not the main course. If a song doesn't have emotion, it won't matter if it's 440, 432, or 10,000. But if changing your tuning inspires your performance, makes your instrument feel more alive, or just gives you goosebumps, then do it. Honestly, if the song sucks, it's gonna suck at 440 or 432. A crappy song is not gonna be saved because you drop it 8 hertz. I've had sessions where dropping the tuning made the singer suddenly nail a take they were struggling with, because it makes sense, it's lower. I've also had bands argue for an hour about the vibe isn't the same at this and that. Whatever gets us to the next song. If it's 432, you just all jump on board, tune it, let's move on. So yeah, there's a science, but there's also a feel. I'll tell you one thing, there's also the case where sometimes you don't have a choice. I'll give you a good example. I had a session with a marimba. The marimba, guess what? We had no choice. We had to tune to what the marimba was. Because guess what? You can't adjust the tuning on a marimba, a xylophone, a glockenspiel, whatever. These instruments are made like that from the factory. And if they happen to wear over the years, and they have gone flatter over the years, guess what? Everybody's tuning that way. So if that instrument is flat, guess what? That song is going to be flat. So everyone adjusts to it. I've also had that happen with accordions. You can't retune an accordion. That's how it comes from the factory. Now, technically, you can take the reeds out and do almost like a temperament switch on it or have reeds that have more vibration or more vibrato to them. But it's not like an accordion player can be like, oh yeah, let me tune up a little bit. Let me tune up a couple of cents sharp. Nope, doesn't happen. In those cases, you're forced to tune to that instrument. So forget 440, 432, whatever. It's whatever that cat brought that day. And if that whole instrument's flat, guess what? Everyone's tuning flat, except the drums. God knows what they tune to. The great 440, 432 debate isn't really about numbers. It's about how deeply sound affects us. Music has always been our way of syncing with the world, our pulse, our breath, the rhythm of the planet itself. If tuning 432 makes you play more peaceful, then do it. If 440 makes your mix cut through better, do that. There's no right or wrong. It's just connection. That's what you're trying to achieve. So next time you pick up your instrument, remember, we're all just tuning forks, trying to find our own frequency. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you liked this episode. I like digging into these kind of weird, obscure music facts, sometimes music history. If you like what we're talking about and you want to support the podcast, consider becoming a sponsor. For as little as $3 a month, you can help this podcast keep going. How do you do it? Hit the support the show button. It's on the front page of this podcast. Guys, I really dug you being here. Thanks for stopping by. I do appreciate you all being here. And I'll catch you on the next one. Maybe we'll talk about Fibonacci sequences. Catch you on the next one, guys.
We're hanging out with chops. Time just never stops. Answers fade like drops on a broken ticking clock.